Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our webinar. My name is Aishah McCoy. I am a family law and wills and trust attorney here in Austin, Texas. I own a family-centered practice here in town. I have been practicing in Travis and the surrounding counties for almost 12 years now. I'm also a single mother and an amateur boxer. So our team has the wherewithal to handle even the most high conflict cases. But what we really specialize in is ushering families into new expressions of their relationships in a very healthy way. And today I am joined by my friend and colleague and wellness practitioner, Kasey Cromer, and I will let him introduce himself.
Hello, everyone. I am so excited to be here. Thank you, Aishah, for inviting me for this this conversation, which is one of my favorite conversations about yoga wellness and what it can really do to help transform your life and everything around you. So a little bit on my background is, as Aishah said, I am a yoga wellness practitioner. I am a teacher of meditation, of different tools and techniques of meditation, also physical yoga practices. I have two separate teaching certifications, 200 hours, one that specializes specifically in hatha yoga, which is really combining breath and movement, specific yoga postures, as well as theory around hatha yoga practices. And I have another 200-hour that really goes into specific tools of meditation, from mindfulness meditation to how you incorporate different breath techniques. I'm originally from West Palm Beach, Florida, specifically Riviera Beach, which is a small city within West Palm Beach. And I met Aishah, had the pleasure of doing some work in Austin, and was there for about 7 years. And I currently reside in Atlanta, and I've been in Atlanta now for the past 3 years. And I really decided to move to Atlanta to really expand my business of yoga and wellness for both individuals and corporations. So I started off in Austin teaching yoga in 2015 after I was certified, and had the pleasure of working with yoga studios, martial arts studios, doing certain specific yoga retreats. Some companies I've had the opportunity to work with I've worked with is LegalZoom, Instacart, SAP. So I've worked with some really well-known companies, but some of my most favorite work is the one-on-one client work that I do to really dive in to support individuals to really work with change in their life, bringing in specific practices. I know how powerful and transformative yoga has been through my own experience. And I love saying practitioner versus like expert or master teacher, because really it's in the practices and sharing of experience. And I'm all about teaching what I know versus theory, and what I hear in shared conversations with others who really see the benefit of yoga. So I'm really excited to be with Aishah, exploring this topic in the realm of what we're going to discuss, which you've seen the promotions on, which is centered around going through periods of divorce. Aishah?
Thank you so much, Kasey. I'm so thrilled that you're here today and that you're sharing your knowledge and wisdom with the rest of us. I just want to let everyone know that the purpose of our seminar is to provide some general information to the public, just general information to the community about divorce. We will be hosting, for now, there will be virtual seminars about specific topics within divorce. Our goal is to shift the collective perspective when it comes to the process of divorce, from one that can be very traumatic and destructive, to one that's actually really transformative. This month, we'll be providing tips on how to establish and maintain your mental well-being while you are going through divorce. Divorce is difficult. but know that there are ways to cope with it in a way that's very meaningful and very healthy. You're always welcome to visit my Instagram bio, A McCoy at Law, for the link to our other wellness resources and other webinars. We intend to record each of these sessions so that our viewers can tune in whenever it's convenient for them. We also hope to form a community of participants within our seminars. We hope that you all come back and connect with one another, because I've watched what my own divorce clients go through, and from someone who has gone through the emotionally turbulent process myself, I can say that divorce can be a very isolating experience. So we formed this group and these webinars to connect and just show support for each other through this shared experience. So now that Kasey and I have introduced ourselves and we've discussed the purpose of this seminar, let's turn our attention towards the discussion itself. So since I started my practice years ago, I realized, as I'd mentioned earlier, that divorce has the potential to be very damaging to your emotional, physical, and mental well-being. With that said, I always counsel my family law clients on how important it is to invest in your self-care and to remember to put the oxygen mask on yourself. Oftentimes, my divorce clients feel anger, helplessness, anxiety, grief, and that attitude trickles down and affects that individual's relationships with their kids. It causes disruptions at work, and it can be reflected in the way they actually abuse their bodies in order to manage these very negative emotions. But so one thing to realize is that divorce very much feels like a death, the death of the dream of growing old with your spouse, potentially ending relationships with friends in your circles and the in-laws that you have grown close to. So this is why it is incredibly important to understand and know how to deal with the emotional impacts of divorce, as well as find ways to work through this grief process and take control of your mental health. So over the years, I've developed these really helpful tips, and many of my clients have actually found them very useful. So my first tip is to seek professional guidance. Enlist the help of professionals to guide you through this process. Retain a family law attorney that can guide you through the legal aspects of the divorce. Know that a good family law attorney will be able to give you a bird's eye view of what the process will look like, be able to fully understand the emotional transition you are going through, and just be really communicative regarding your goals as well as what your expectations are in the divorce. I always like to ask my clients how they know that the outcome of their divorce will be a successful one, because it really sets your sex expectations on the likelihood of that desired outcome. I always recommend that my clients seek counseling or therapy, and just be open to finding a neutral third party who is there to help you process these changes and just frame them in a very meaningful way. And for an instance, I had this client who was admittedly a superwoman. She was the owner of her own nonprofit, about to be a single mom to 3 little kids, and was just used to being the hero, the one who was used to helping people. And I think a lot of moms in that position, they're in a position where they think that they can do it all, and sometimes it's really difficult to ask for help when we are so used to being the helpers. She would come to my office in just tears and just feeling so overwhelmed by the legal process, and really by her emotions. And that's when I referred her to a therapist and asked her to start really trusting us and allowing herself to be vulnerable and not to be afraid to seek help. And because she was able to trust in us, she really did feel less alone in the process. So I discussed how seeking professional guidance is so important. But with that said, definitely don't be afraid also to lean on your circles of friends and families for help. Realize that this is a very overwhelming process, and that the people that who love you, they're going to be by your side. Separation does not mean that your existence has to be a lonely one. Take this divorce really as a chance for you to fortify the relationships that you have with your loved ones. Please.
Yes, yes, well said, Aisha, especially around communities. So oftentimes, when think about yoga wellness practices, I really think about it just you on a yoga mat or you sitting on a cushion and just focusing going within, which is one aspect of it. However, and with yoga as well, it's also the recognition when you're not on the mat, who is in your community. A community of people, like what Aisha mentioned before, when it comes to your family and friends that are there to support you, is an invaluable tool within the yoga wellness um, toolkit to help really bring balance to mental well-being, which is really what we're talking about with the mind, especially when you're going through all the change. So some of the individuals and classes I've talked about, just in general, just to have them feel connected when they feel very isolated and alone and feel disconnected from their community and people that love them. I'm going to take us through an exercise now where I'm going to invite you just to experience what it means to connect with your community, even if your community is not directly in front of you physically, and you need to feel connected and supported and held up. So what I'm going to ask you to do is just close your eyes for a moment. And as you close your eyes, just go ahead and observe your inhale breath as it comes into your body. And then observe the exhale breath. And you're just at this place now of observing how the breath feels, just to connect to yourself for a moment. And as you're connecting with that breath, start to focus the attention at your place at your heart, at the center of your heart. And as you breathe into that space at the center of the heart, feel that connection to the breath breathing into the heart. And then exhale the breath and feel that release of the exhale breath. And as you're just breathing in and connecting with your breath, allow yourself to feel someone. What does it feel like to be close physically to someone that you really trust in your community? It can be a loved one like your parent, significant other, or child. Really just breathe in that connection to whoever comes up for you. That's the right person for you right now in this moment of practice. And really breathe in and feel the emotion that comes up. So when I'm breathing in now, I'm breathing out, and I'm thinking about that particular person, what I feel is kindness and unconditional love. And that it uplifts my spirit a bit right now as I'm
Oh,
breathing in
yes.
and breathing out. And just take one more deep inhale breath just to feel that connection to that person. And one deep exhale breath just to settle back in. And then you can just gently open your eyes. And I'm just going to have you hold space right now and be in the moment and just ask, Aisha, how would you feel with that practice of community connecting to your breath?
I felt it was very refreshing, and it's wonderful to be able to feel that connection to that loved one, that one that's and to find that space of comfort and peace. And it does, and finding that stillness really, like, it really helps, lets you surrender to that love, and to that the love that that person gives you. I think that's such a beautiful thing, such a beautiful way of connecting to your community, but by starting within yourself, which, and I think that's so important, because I think that being able to there is a challenge in being able to connect with your community just because of time. Well, a lot of times it's because you can't find the time. We're so busy on the day to day that we don't actually have the chance to physically connect with the people that we love. And I think that in this sense, it gives you a way to connect with that person and receive that love from that person without what, even in the midst of the chaos, the midst of the busyness. And I think that's such a beautiful teaching that you shared with us. Thank you so much.
Yes, of course, and especially the add-on to what Aisha shared, especially now we're in a different world of experience with the pandemic and COVID. I've talked to
Yes.
many of my customers, well, my clients that work with me on feeling isolated. And that is a very useful technique I have because really the reality is the mind will interpret what it believes is in front of them. And you'll be amazed with just using your breath and that visualization of feeling connection. It's all there inside of you, and you can completely be in a place physically alone and be completely feeling connected to your loved ones just using that practice. So I encourage you to keep trying it out, especially in those moments of
Yes,
loneliness.
the moments of loneliness, because like I was saying, like divorce can be such an isolating process. But if we find that the love that it's very easy to feel like in these times of isolation that we're not loved, that we're not wanted. But that's not true. We're surrounded by it. It's just a matter of being able to silence yourself and just tune into that and because it's there, you just have to look within yourself. So thank you so much for that. Yes. So and we were talking about finding that moment of, I guess, stillness, of connection. And one thing that is especially important, and how you were saying that it's so important for us to continuously find that connection, is that if we find that connection more and more and more, it helps us avoid some of the negative behavior that comes out of the divorce process, the negative behavior towards yourself and others. Because believe me, as going through the process myself, or have gone through the process myself, I get how difficult it is not to react out of anger. But know that it's so important to maintain a sense of mental clarity. So behavior like gossiping about your soon-to-be ex-spouse, keeping your children away from your ex, abusing alcohol or drugs, these are all behaviors that can not only just affect you in a negative way, but it can affect your case in a magnanimously awful way. So while it takes a great deal of inner strength to learn to take the high road when you feel tempted to make that choice, do it. So yeah, and I'm hoping Kasey has some tips or some assistance in this area.
Yes. What's so amazing about this is even though the conversation is centered around people going through divorce, negative thoughts, gossiping, all those things are something we see so often, right? In this world,
Right.
especially with social media, then we watch mainstream news. So if you with mental wellness, a great thing is you have the tool that is your mind. So your mind, if you allow yourself when we did the exercise earlier, which is breathing for a bit, and then we moved into a transition about community, just getting a moment to just really pay attention to your thoughts. And you'll know if you just take enough time, which we'll go into other conversations and other Zoom conversations, you'll hear those negative thoughts and really it really does bring down your energy, and it's all about wholeness when we think about mental wellness. So one of the things that always works for me, I shouldn't say always, one of the tools that works for me is curiosity, that willingness when you are aware enough of the negative thoughts to get a little bit curious. And an example of a story of that is one of my close friends was going through a tough time with a breakup. And it was so easy to push blame and really just have all this negative conversations with all of her friends and family about how poor this person treated them. And one of the things that I shared with her is, can you get curious enough to, I get all these actions happen, but put that aside for a moment and say, what if I stay in this space over here and just be in really focus on the positive of how we can now bridge this friendship because the romantic piece is done. What does it
Mhm.
like to really bridge a friendship? What is one thing that you can shift from a place of curiosity and how you think about this person and what moving forward where you're putting out more positive energy. It doesn't mean that there was not wrong, but if we live in a place of wrong, we don't find that balance oftentimes in freedom. It starts to really, the negativity goes into other parts of our lives. So I always encourage those to first, the tip, going to what Aisha asked in this scenario, really, in this conversation, is being present enough to the negative thoughts and really inserting that point of curiosity within the mind. We say, okay, I get all that negative thoughts. Sometimes I talk to my mind, actually, my thoughts. So
Mhm.
like I get all those things may be true at this moment. However, I'm gonna be in this box of curiosity outside of the negative thoughts and create something different where I can move in a space of connection anyway in the midst of all of this. So Aisha, what are your thoughts on that?
No, I think that's amazing. So, I mean, one else, just to add to your point, is that there are other ways of finding outlets aside from the reset that you had just discussed. There are other outlets for your aggression and pain. Like I always tell my clients that exercise or journaling are very therapeutic ways to relieve your mind from all this internal noise. And I think what's really important and what we don't see very often is that people going through divorce really need to practice self-compassion. It gets you to a place of healing much faster. What do you think, Kasey? What do you think about this practice of self-compassion?
I really do love the space of self-compassion, and what it looks like is what we're talking about today. I think the willingness to make a different choice, the willingness to
Mhm.
put out the energy, and whatever it looks like. Today we're talking about how to use certain specific yoga wellness tools. You see Aisha's done other, also providing resources like therapists and just wisdom of experience to give you that doorway to a different choice. And I can say, from just to add on to some of the self-compassion techniques, yoga wellness techniques for balance of the mind, is yoga also provides, I love a rigorous physical activity too. For yoga is physical yoga. We call it asana. We have different
Asana.
poses, such as, if you ever seen warrior where the arms are expanded, or
Yes.
mountain pose or balance pose. You see Aisha's a yogi as well, so she's very familiar. Really, in certain conversations we'll have at another time, certainly, we'll talk about how to be in certain poses and move the negative energy away. But you can literally establish yourself in a daily, and when you need in the moment, rigorous yoga practice that will help move certain energy out of the way to make space for a different choice that's more positive and empowering for you.
Yes. Empowerment is such a big part of this. And that's why we're here, is to show you guys how to step into your own power, how to empower yourselves and maintain control over your mental wellness while you're going through this big change in your lives. So now that I've shared my tips, Kasey, what are some tactics that you have learned in your practice to help individuals going through such a dramatic lifestyle change?
Yes. So what I will say is, with since having deepening my practice since 2013, there are so many tools um, that I have used to really bring balance, and I will just only name a few. But literally, I really do feel like there are infinite tools. We just don't realize it's yoga, because really, when we think about yoga wellness, I'm going to continue to hit home. It's all about bringing balance, bringing
Mhm.
equanimity back to your life, to be in the space of open to the possibilities of creating something positive versus feeling hopeless. So some of the great things that I've used before in the past, I mentioned a few today. Your breath. I would say the breath is the greatest tool that we have, because we always have breath going to stay as part of staying in the body. So we all have access to it regardless of where we are from a physical limitation point of view. Breath technique, which there's many techniques around that. Having a physical yoga practice, which I've mentioned before. There's specific yoga asanas, or we can also say postures. Asanas mean postures that will help remedy certain things such as stress, anxiety, even headaches, believe it or not. There's
Mhm.
also affirmations, and affirmations is really another great concept for working with mind training. Um, there's thought awareness, and believe it or not, something that's often not talked about, silence. That was one of my most favorite practices, which you can have a whole, we can have a whole discussion on silence. So those are just a few examples that really I have found to be very supportive for me to be in a space of balance. And oftentimes I also like to say, be in a space of non-reaction. So much of what ends up happening oftentimes, whether it's what we're talking about today, people experiencing divorce or people experiencing some traumatic situation or a negative experience at work, the negative thoughts happen and then we start to react. We start to create this environmental experience that really doesn't support us having balance. So really, yoga brings us to also a space of non-reaction, meaning
Mhm.
that it's really in the pause between the reaction, the thought, and then the reaction, that you have the freedom to choose what door you want to go into. So I would say that's really, really important. What are your thoughts on non-reaction, Aisha?
Oh, no. Well, I mean, as far as I have some points on set. I don't know. I was just listening to you and about tell me a little bit more about the non-reaction because I am completely ignorant in that respect. So please give me some
Yes.
examples.
So non-reaction, what it looks like to me, and I will give oftentimes as visual human beings until we learn how to um, be inwardly to see what it looks like intangibly, I will use a certain yoga posture that I've been using lately where my arms are spread out and I bring them together really quickly and I pause right here
Mm.
and then connect. This is something that one of my yoga teachers I really connect well with. This is a space of non-reaction, that space between the action, that moment where you're moving so quickly, which imagine the movement of the hands or the thoughts that are fluttering into the mind. And before you create something outwardly, you pause. And in this pause is choice, that gap,
Ah,
non-reaction. Does that make sense?
yes, yes, it does. So is that something different from intention setting or do they kind of go hand in hand?
Great. I would say, and non-reaction actually can be an element within intention. Intention is really for me, the why behind the work. It's like,
Mm.
I'm going to do these certain things to have balance. So
I see.
non-reaction is encased within setting intentions. I love to talk with my hands, so I've been trying to hold back, and now I'm bringing the hands in.
No, the hands are helping. Believe
So
it or not, I'm just like, okay, okay.
yeah, so imagine
I'm
that's
here for it. I'm here for all of it.
yes. Thank you so much, Aisha. So yes, intention, non-reaction is within the case of setting intention. I always say, and which is
Ah.
really the one of the main things I want to hit home with at least this conversation, the importance of setting intention to certainly it can be the outer thing that's supporting balance for you, but setting an intention of what are you looking to connect to for you in that moment of going through this experience to bring balance to yourself. So
Mhm.
that is what it is all about. And oftentimes, especially in yoga and bringing a regular yoga practice. So for example, if we have someone, Aisha, that hears this conversation and says, I really want to focus on being aware of my breath. I just want to simply be aware when I'm inhaling and simply being aware of when I'm exhaling. Super simple. There's nothing else needed, just that awareness of it. So I'm going to set an intention that every time my mind gets busy with thinking and worrying about this situation, I'm like, oh, I'm worried about this. Let me go ahead and focus on, am I breathing inwardly? Am I breathing
Mhm.
outwardly? That is my intention. So that will
Interesting.
be the support. They bring them back to balance with when it comes to their mental well-being, but that's an example. So one thing I love about intention is really that flexibility of intentions.
Mhm.
The flexibility of intentions meaning that if the intention that you set does not give you the motivation or the energy to do the work of your practices, it's important to always give yourself permission to reset intentions because
Mhm.
things move. And I'm sure Aisha, in some of your experiences, if you want to share it with divorce
Oh,
clients
yes.
now, things shift. There's something that is really upsetting at the beginning, but then when you get to a certain point of the divorce process, you have to reset yourself, reset the intention to be able to move forward to get closer to that the place of balance. Do you have an example of that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So, in divorce, emotions can just run wild. Like my clients will say, oftentimes they'll say that some days are better than others. Like some days they feel like they can communicate with their soon-to-be ex-spouses in a very civil way. And then other times the interactions are just high conflict, lots of name calling, shouting, yelling, cursing. But when you're in these, I guess, when you're going through these different motions, it's really important to maintain this mindfulness as you ride the tides during the process. And it's really about taking a moment to pause and go back to what's important to you, going back to your intention of how you want to show up for the world. And it's not easy. It gets better with practice. You really got to treat it like a muscle that you have to regularly exercise. And just to add to that, like setting an intention, it's not about, okay, these are the things I want to accomplish for today. Like these are my goals. Because when you do that, you're just going to set yourself up for disappointment. When you don't meet those goals or meet those expectations, it's not, so setting intention is not about goal setting. It's not about checking off a list or task. It's envisioning how you want to move throughout the day. It's about how you want to show up for the world, how you and having this mindset, and this vision of how you want to show up. It really sets the stage for how you are going to show up for your kids, how you're going to show up for your meetings, my meetings with my clients, or your meetings at your job, or whatever tasks you have going on at work. But having this mindfulness it really helps you dedicate 100% of your energy to the demands of work, kids, family, friends. It's very powerful. What do you think, Kasey?
Absolutely, and well said, Aisha, adding to the conversation of intention. And that in itself and setting intention can be its own fun topic. And really, for different people, it can be different things. But I definitely agree, it should definitely not be a checklist. And what Asha, listen to me, I'm thinking about a spiritual teacher, Aisha
Oh, I'm a
stated,
spiritual teacher.
yes, you are. Yes, you are. But yes, really, I'm gonna use the word really embodiment of what you want to experience and how you want to move through the day. I should said it perfectly. So, um, yes, it's really important because it's really will give you support and just maintain the awareness of it. And it's really, I always like to describe it as a metaphor of when you feel like so much chaos happens, because sometimes it can feel like chaos happens in the moment and it's like you feel very lost. You can see
Mhm.
you're setting intention to be that pole star that you can look towards it to bring you back to your point of balance and going back into the practices. So when it feels very dark, the light oftentimes I equate it to is your intention because it brings you back like, oh, I'm so confused, but there's light here. Oh, let me go to the practices. Let me go to the toolkit to help bring me back to balance. Especially when it's
Mhm.
dark, intentions help you get back to your practices.
Yes, to the practice, to your awareness, to your breath, to being mindful. So, yeah, thank you so much, Kasey, for those tips. They're incredibly important. Well, we've talked about how Casey's run through his tips on how to move through divorce in a very healthy, mindful way. And yes, we realize divorce, it's an extremely difficult and stressful time in a person's life. But please know that when you are operating on a higher level of consciousness and being mindful of each moment, you can reduce the negative impact that divorce has on your overall well being. And by having this proactive approach, putting in the time and effort from the get go also helps manage the well being of your children. It can also help you keep on track at work, and eventually, it will open your heart to a brand new life, as well as a sense of fulfillment that you never thought was possible. Kasey, do you have any closing advice for our viewers?
Yes, I would definitely say everything starts, really drive home with the, I gave you different techniques, is really setting the attention. So really, that is a great starting point before, because that's really going to anchor you and keep you to
Absolutely.
remind you of why you're doing what you're doing and how it's bringing you back to what you really want. It's just your joy, your happiness, you're feeling connected and balanced within the mind. As we go and have other conversations, which we so look forward to. We'll talk about deep diving into certain other areas of yoga wellness toolkit, because there's so many beautiful practices and different examples that both Aisha and I both share in our joy of this specific technique that is yoga to help support us in our day-to-day lives.
Beautiful, wonderful, Kasey. Well, we hope that you guys get a chance to connect with others in the group. And please know that we will have future discussions and that our conversations discussing in detail as well as practicing yoga wellness techniques while showing their application to a divorced person's experience. Now we'll go ahead and take your questions.
And if I can just
Yeah.
add one quick thing, by
Yes,
the way,
yes,
just want
before
to
we do.
plug, if you're curious about how to find me, the easiest way is on Instagram. Just simply type in yoga wellness by BY Casey, Kasey, and that'd be the easiest way to connect with me and the work that I'm doing in the communities.
Beautiful, beautiful. Well, thank you so much, Kasey. And again, my Instagram bio, where you can get all sorts of updates about maintaining mental wellness through divorce, how to talk to your children about divorce, and various other topics will be introduced through my Instagram bio. That's AMCCOYATLAW, A McCoy at Law. So thank you so much, everyone. We'll take your questions.